So we are starting the new series that is the Java collection. In that we are going through all the things that are related to collection that will help you in assignments, projects, and any algorithm that will use the collection. So we can solve different types of questions that are related to collection. So we are doing that. So let's start with the collection. So what is mean by collection? So collection represent a single unit of object. So for example, you have a different people, group of people we want to store in the one object. So we can use the collection. So this is all about the collection. So in Java there is a collection framework that provide to store and manipulate the group of objects. So if you have group of student you want to store in the one object, so you can use the collection and you can store in the one object, and you can manipulate or update in the future, so that we can do in the collection. So this is all about the collection. So before starting the collection, we generally use array. So in array, so how can we store the elements in the array, and what is the drawbacks of array? So we can see that also. So first of all, we start with the array. So first, before using the array, we try to use the multiple integers in a variable. So first of all, we try to store one variable. So we have to use integer as a data type and equal to the variable value. So if you store the single value, you can store easily. But if you try to store in multiple values, so we have to use different variable to try to store. So like int a equal to 10, and after that we have to store int b equal to 20, and likewise int z equal to 260. If you try to see the these example, this is a very hectic problem. So if you try to store every data in different variables, it will create the conflicts to like if you want to get the data about a b, so we have to remember the variable name. So that's why we came up with the array. So same with a string, in string, if you try to store the a value, that is a string a equal to a, and if you have multiple string values and if you try to store there, that's why we have to remember every string value their variable name. So that's why in future if you want to call that variable, so we have to remember that variable name or their details. So this is a very hectic problem, so that's why we came up with the array. So in array, if you want to store the any group of object, so we have to create the array. So to create the array, first we have to return the type of the array, and after that their variable name equal to, we have to use new keyword to create the array. After that we have to give the length and the size of the array, and that will create the array, and you can store the value in the array. But in a array we have uh, to store the value in the array, we have to use uh, integers, square bracket opening and closing, and we have to put their position as a in the square bracket. That is a, if you want to store the value in the zeroth position, we have to give the zero, and equal to the value of your value of the your you want to store in the array. But in the array, if you try to store this integer after fixed size, and it will give error and exception that we cannot store the after that value. So that's why we came up with a collection to store the different values and different value in the array. So and we can manipulate the size of the collection also. So that is why we came up with the collection. So these are the some different types of data types. Like first one is the integer data type, second one is the string, that is object. So we can store the string value in the array also. And if you have object of students we can also store in the array, and same with the employee. But if you have different data types like integer, string, student, employees, anything, and if you want to store in the one variable, so we can store that also in array. But if you have to use object class, that is the universal class, we have to use in as a data type to store in the one variable. So you can store in these objects any type data type value you can store in this. But if you try to get the value, if you have to remember their position also, where we have store the which data type value, so we have to remember that also in the object data type. So after that we are there are different drawbacks in array, so we are going to see that. So first one is array is fixed. So if you see the size of the array, we have to initially define the size of the array also. So after inserting the data, we cannot manipulate the data and we cannot change the size of the array. So if you try to save after inserting five integers, and after we want to insert another integer in the same array, we cannot do that and it will give the exception. So that's why array size is fixed. And you cannot store the heterogeneous data. That means if you have integer array and if you try to store different data types, like 10 is an integer data type and a is a character, or you can say a string data type, and if you try to store in the integer data type, that will give the exception and we cannot store that data in the same data type. So this is about the heterogeneous data. And in array we cannot use predefined methods that are not available in array. So like if you want to sort anything, you cannot do in the array. Like we cannot do the remove method. So we have to create our own remove method or our own add method to do some task, and that will create very lengthy process. So that's why we have to use a collection framework to do some easy tasks to do in easy way. So that's why we came up with the collection framework. So last point is in today's video is array versus collections. Why what is the difference between arrays and collection? So arrays is size is fixed, so we cannot manipulate or change the size of the array. But in a collection, we can change, manipulate, increase or decrease the size of the collection. So we can store any data any time. So we can don't have to consider that what is the size of the that array. We don't have to consider what is the data type of that array. So we can do that in collection. So in array, so all the data, if you try to store in the array, that all are homogeneous data types. That means we don't have any um, option that we can store the heterogeneous data in the array. But in the collection, we can store homogeneous data, also a heterogeneous data type. We can store in the collection. So in collection, we can store by using, if you want to give the data type to the collection, you can do that also. But if you don't want to give the data type, that will also we can do. But in the array, first of all, we have to initiate with the data type only. We cannot, without using the data type, you cannot create the array. So that's why that is a biggest drawback about the array. And in array, we cannot use, or there is no availability of ready-made methods to store or to manipulate the data. So like a remove, then if any element present in the array, we cannot use the contains if. So these are the examples of array that methods are not present in the array. In collection, there are different methods that we can use, like adding, then removing, then contains if, and we also use the sorting technique, reverse sorting technique. These are all things are present in the collection, we can do that. And you can use the collection for any manipulation like updating, like also we can in future we can remove the elements also from the collection. You can also manipulate any data, like anything you can do in the collection. So this is all about the collection. And in next video we are starting with the classes and interfaces that are present in the collection, that is hierarchy of the collection. We will see in the next video. So thank you.